We'll start like we always do, with introductions. Let us know where you came from, who you are, your name. I'll start. Pedro Marquez, the Executive Director of the Big Hole Watershed Committee, and we'll go left.
Can you go over from you? From you?
Big copy from you.
Steve Luback with Butte-Silver Conduit Sportsman.
Craig John, Wise River.
Tommy Gordon, Wise River.
Jim Olsen with Wildlife and Parks. Luke Lutz with FWP.
Caitlin Cloyd with Fish, Wildlife and Parks.
Jim Griffin, Butte.
Tim Kempford, Wise River.
Jim Keenan with Butte-Silver Water Utility. Howard Varner, Minor Creek, Jackson. Dean Peterson, rancher up a Big Hole. Mark Rafferty, rancher, Lower Big Hole. Jim Hagan, rancher, Middle Big Hole. Also, Roy Butte, Melrose. I'm actually Mark Creek, rancher.
John Jackson, Beaver County Commissioner, Jackson.
Eric Thorson, Melrose.
William Marsh, representing George Canal.
Ben Ford, Restoration Programs Manager of the Big Hole Watershed Committee.
And Carol Wilson, the Associate Director of the Watershed Committee.
There's some folks in the back.
Cal Smith, rancher, Glenn.
J.M. Peck, rancher, Melrose.
Marianne Nicholas, Dylan.
Chad Hall, Butte.
Jim and Jay Worsler, Wise River.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Get everybody, yeah. We'll go on to our climate and precip update. Caitlin, you got the honors today? Substituting Caitlin's today.
I'm Caitlin. So normally it's other Caitlin that does this presentation. We're both part of the CCAA program, so not to make the Caitlin's name confusing. I should not stand there. Okay. I'm looking for all this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so yeah, Caitlin Moore made these slides. This is a map of where the DNRC gauges are. If you go to their website, you can look these up and at any time go and look at what the CFS is across the Big Hole. So looking at the Big Hole River below Big Lake Creek, as you can see, the CFS has increased, high flow is starting, and it's sitting just above 200. Big Hole River below Mud Creek near Wisdom. Again, you can see that CFS increasing, and we are above 1,000 CFS. At Beaton Rock, again, flows are increasing, and we're just below that 2,000 CFS. Near Melrose, just below 2,000 CFS. Near Glen, again, just below that 2,000 CFS. Big Hole below Hamilton Ditch near Twin Bridges. We are now above that 1,000 CFS, and this one has had a big increase. Looking at our snow water equivalent, right now for the Big Hole, we're at 79%. That has been increasing recently with the snow and rain we've had. For a while there, it was looking kind of dangerous, but we just got into the green the first time this season, so that's exciting. I don't know how to read this graph, we're gonna have to skip that one.
All I know is that it's 93% normal.
93% is normal.
Yeah. It's showing you relative to the elevations where the snowpack is concentrated.
Yes,
Right.
and a lot of the snowpack is still in that high elevation.
Yeah, that's all of it, right? Nothing below 6,000 feet. That's kind of right.
Yep, thank you for the assistance. Looking at precipitation for the year, we're at 79% of medium. It's still looking pretty good and hopefully continues. So our climate outlook in the next week or two, the temperature is looking below normal and precipitation is going to be slightly above normal. So these are looking really great. Seasonally, it is predicted that here in the Big Hole, we're going to be likely higher than normal in temperature. And it's kind of mixed for precipitation. We're going to be below normal to normal or equal chances. This is looking at drought, and as we can see here, you're all good. There is a chance of a moderate drought is what we're predicting. So this summer may be drier than normal, but I'm still very hopeful we have a good year. And that is all. Hopefully I substituted Caitlin well enough.
Appreciate it. Any questions?
It's not your question for Caitlin. Did the CCA implement their low climate strategy?
Yes, that's a good question. The CCAA program decided to implement a drought plan to help this upcoming summer if it ends up dry. Essentially, we are going to try and put more water out into the floodplain this spring while the flows are high, so that sponge absorbs it. So the flow triggers are slightly different this spring than normal. And that's only for reaches A, B, and C. So does not apply to reaches D and E. The entire program ends at Dickey Bridge. I am not remembering off the top of my head where. Do you remember where C ends? I don't remember off the top of my head. My creek.
Different about that than any other school.
So normally our flow triggers in the spring are higher. One of them, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, Caitlin has these memorized, is like 160, 120. Yep, and instead we're doing 60 CFS for reaches A, B, and C at Wisdom. So they're all going based off of that 60 CFS in Wisdom, which essentially lowering the trigger, but that trigger number will remain in the summer, which is slightly higher than normal for reaches A and B. So basically, instead of having a high trigger and then a lower trigger, we're going to keep it like this.
Okay.
60 CFS at Wisdom for each sections A, B, and C. Hopefully that all makes sense.
I don't know,
Me
I think we
explaining.
need to update our drought. We are saying 40 is fast.
Yeah, and this plan is not a permanent plan also. This is going to be in cases of drought. And hopefully this year we can learn if it was an effective tool that we can use when there is a severe drought year. When we looked at that snow water equivalent, all of us agency people were kind of starting to be a little afraid, seeing it was so low. Obviously it's gone a lot higher. So this still may not be a bad year. And I think there's still about a 50-50 odd we go into a La Nina, which could bring on a lot of rain, but I can't promise it. So, and hopefully I'm explaining it.
So that was
So what happens is, Caitlin and Caitlin on May 1st, they get together and review where we're at, snowpack wise, and forecast is, and then we decide what we're going to do for conditions will come. And essentially all that means is we're hoping that while there is water, that you guys can use that water instead of let it go by. And then when it gets really tough, maybe it's not so hard for us to ask. Because we haven't done anywhere near that, well, like that trigger yet, we're still above it. And so, like, come like the end of July, if we don't get rain, if we don't get rain, there's still water there. Well, right, so that trigger is in place to protect railings and spawning when they're young. And so that higher flow trigger is bank full flow. So that keeps the whole river wet. And so what we're saying is by the end of July, all those grill and fry are already hatched. They're out swimming around. So we don't, or end of June, we don't need them. We don't need bank full flows for the railing to survive. And that means that we can ask for more water in the middle of July when we need that. That's what we're trying to do.
Yes, thank you, Jim. He did a much better job than I did.
We want to make sure we communicate it, right? So we want to access the office. The river sites and stats, so like that. I don't think this is taken water.
Our triggers are the same as the drought plan for the summer. That 60 is our prepare for conservation. We're saying that is our trigger point for the spring. I believe we need to change though, like summertime.
Okay.
I think that helps.
Any follow-up questions after that? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, David. Good job. All right, I will actually go fairly quickly now through my director's update. Thanks everybody for joining us on Zoom. Brief, I've just basically been in a proposal writing hole for a whole month, so everything's a blur other than that. We are working, I finally got, it was amazingly difficult to get the forms necessary to try to negotiate an indirect cost rate with the feds for our projects. It's just good business. It's like, pretend like you're a business. You need enough with all of your work and hours to cover everything else other than the work that you're doing, right? So I now know the direction to go in. I've actually done some of the calculations already. They say it takes 45 days, so I'll plan on maybe 6 months from now, do I have one? But maybe, who knows, maybe it's really quick. So I'll dive into that this week and this month coming up. Still waiting with the forest also to update our Elkhorn agreements. That's for the Elkhorn Mine and Mill, big remedy project that we're doing. We have an existing partnership agreement. This is a multi-year agreement. And as the phases of the project progress, the forest finds more money and chunks it into that agreement so we can keep our contractors going. So are you talking much about Elkhorn? So we are currently, we have a document called an ECA, it's Environmental Evaluation / Cost Analysis. This is the alternatives analysis decision-making tool that the forest uses under Superfund to start laying kind of like a NEPA process where you're laying out, these are all the things we could do. Here's the benefit of all of these different approaches and the relative cost of these different approaches. For X, Y, and Z reasons, we choose to do this one. And that's the decision that then moves into an action item, goes through a public process. So that's the phase that we're at right now, is going through the draft ECA. But basically at this point, we know the direction we're going, which is 50,000 cubic yards of contaminated dirt from 3 discrete locations around the Elkhorn mine site. It's going to get dug up, fall to a repository that's like 3 miles away. And so that public process will continue. As far as the forest doing its due diligence, in the meantime, we're getting 30% design under an existing contract with our engineers, and the forest just put in more money for us to get to 100% design. All the details of what that whole construction is going to look like. 50,000 cubic yards is a lot of haul trucks. So designing exactly the details of how this all gets done. The price tag on the whole project is probably somewhere in the $3 million range, and the forest is going to be looking around for the funding for all of that, but that'll come through the watershed committee. We'll do the contracting and all of that when the time comes. Probably not for a while though. Yeah, question.
You know much about the repository, what that's gonna be like?
Yes.
What about,
So the repository, there is an existing repository. When they did an action in the early 2000s, they removed, back when, I don't know if anyone remembers the Elkhorn then, but there were big piles of orange dirt right next to the water. I hear that's not good. So they removed all of that and put it in a repository. And these, what you're looking for in a repository is somewhere in an upland setting that's flat, you know, away from groundwater, away from water sources, somewhere where you're just not gonna get contamination spewing out of somewhere and back downstream. So if they have a good site for that, we have done a repository investigation already. So we got a grant from BNRC just to do the assessment of that site to see if there's enough room to accommodate the extra dirt. And the site passed with flying colors, so we know where we're taking it. That was a big hurdle to get there. If we didn't have that repository, I don't know if the project becomes feasible. Because at the end of the day, the haul distance, when you have to make 5,000 or 6,000 trips with a truck, the haul distance becomes the key factor price-wise for a project.
so you have to build dikes or anything? Repository or just?
No, I don't think there's any dikes or berms. It's gonna be dug in and buried with a liner on top so that water doesn't penetrate in. And those are some of the alternatives, right? You could have done a repository with a bottom liner also. Way more expensive, and what they determined in the ECA is that you get like marginally, you go from 96% removal of contaminants to 97%, but you add X hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it just, so that's what that whole document is walking people through that decision process. And then there's always a do nothing alternative, which costs nothing, but that's not okay. So that's where that project is, just coming along. I signed off on another agreement with the forest, updating our Trail Creek work that Ben had been doing last year. They gave us more money to finish some riparian work there and do conifer encroachment in the Eastern Pioneers. So all that's just plugging along. It only took us 5 years, but it looks like Ben's finally got a forestry program going, which was the whole intent when we hired him. But here we are. Now he's a forestry guy and a riparian restoration wizard all in one. We got a lot of proposals out the door this last month, trying to get irrigation infrastructure funded at Wise River and Cherry Creek. We put in for an investigation of the potential of high meadow storage using low-tech techniques to just get the soils in our high alpine meadows flooded out and saturated. The soil sponge concept. It's the same thing flood irrigators do, to not way up high in the mountains in meadows. So we want to see what, if you look across the big hole, how many of these meadow areas are there? Which ones are feasible to actually do this work in, where there wouldn't be any conflicts with fisheries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's low-hanging fruit type of projects, and if we get them lined out, we have a sort of a laundry list of places to go to do some good work for the resource. The Pennington Bridge project we have been working on for years, and design is on its way this year. We have money from the DNRC for that. These are biennial grant programs, so we figured not wait, go in for implementation dollars now, even though the design is not ready. We'll see how that goes. And obviously, if any of these are not familiar to anyone, we can talk afterwards, but just for time and moving forward, I'm not gonna go into the weeds on all of these. So the Elkhorn, we asked the DNRC, I just put that in the mail today. We asked them for $300,000, which is the max of that mine reclamation program. That's only 10% of what we need, but it's a great sign. They've funded a lot of the planning grants, so I feel pretty good about this one. Covered it. Okay, a couple other things that just kind of came across my desk that I thought I'd mention. A finding of no significant impact was found at Red Rock Lakes. So FWP going in and removing beaver dams in the spring was assessed to have no significant impact. So hopefully that is all they needed to move forward. and start doing that work. We'll see what happens with litigation on that one. And then the Red Rock Lakes, Fish and Wildlife Service I saw this morning actually did have a lawsuit filed on them for their grazing management at the refuge. The litigants, it's the typical litigants claiming that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is not monitoring, tracking grazing and its impacts on the refuge, wildlife habitat, potentially endangered species, those things. So I'm staying as far away from this as my board will allow me to stay. That's it. We also had one interesting meeting with Fish, Wildlife and Parks. You know, Vanna last year in November presented on the sage grouse studies and the pronghorn studies that she had done. She got a group of us together in wisdom, really to just try to leverage that data and make the most use of it. You know, as scientists, we want to do studies to learn things, but we want that knowledge to be put to work. And so it was Vanna's sort of plea to all of us, and she started sharing some of those data layers with us of, you know, here's where the pronghorn are migrating, here's where the sage grouse and leks are, and that helps us as we're looking around for project opportunities. If you can match up a good resource-based project nearby sage grouse and leks, this increases your chances for funding and all of those things. So that was great, all good partnership building stuff. That is all I have.
So how did that bypass, that been talked about that?
You're gonna touch Miss Springs?
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about that. But yes, that is Miss Springs, yeah. I'll give you details. I thought it looked awesome. Any other questions? Okay. Awesome. Steering committee, I think, is next.
We just move back, I believe. The steering committee's met a couple times in payroll. We have the remote working agreement signed, it's signed and done. We went through all this stuff in our last meeting and made sure that everything was in order. We've been working on a few fires, been talking with Jim Olsen on some fishing game, there's a possibility of putting on Murphy rights down the road, which is kind of comical.
Something else they want. Okay.
Should we go into that? No, okay, we're not gonna do that.
But we will,
Yeah, we're,
when the time comes.
okay. Great, any questions for the steering committee? Thank you for that. Yeah, so I timed my remote work to October 16th, when I make it to the October meeting here, run that, and then get on a plane, and won't see me again until July. But you'll hear from me a lot, still. Okay, up next, Tana. She does all the things. Good. She's taking notes, running Zoom, and presenting. I'm expendable. She's not.
Wow. Right. Letter.
Sure, I don't got two slides. All right, so just a quick note on the communications. We'll be at the Montana Folk Festival this year, July 12th to 14th in Butte. We'll be partnering with the Butte-Silver Water Utility Department to kind of tell folks visiting the festival about the watershed committee's role, the Butte-Silver proposed role and some of the budgets they have going on, and then how the Big Hole River actually supplies a lot of Butte's water. So, and we did secure a mini grant through the Montana Association of Conservation Districts, which will fund some of the stuff that we're gonna need for our time at the folk festival, our fancy new owl camera that we're gonna get in here for our Zoom meetings, and a few other things. So that's exciting. We just heard about that today. And then our wildlife speaker series, I finally pinned down all the details for that. So we'll be meeting here July 17th, which is the third Wednesday. It'll start at 6 p.m. and we'll have a potluck with elk burgers, which were generously donated by Brian Wheeler. And then it's a potluck, so you can bring a side or dessert if you care to come. And then the presentation will be at 7 and it will be on grizzly bears. So the meal is at 6 and the presentation is at 7. So, all right, so some fun events going on this summer. And then the grizzly bear topic is right in time because I didn't include a picture, but there have been photographs floating around of a grizzly bear by Wise River. That's been getting a lot of attention, so. And our carcass removal and composting program is up and running. Our new driver, Justin Cunningham, he's been great. And he's picked up 39 carcasses from 12 producers. It's actually pretty low in terms of carcasses, but that's pretty high in terms of participation. So I think that's a win for everybody because the mild temperatures and conditions have just helped people not lose too many animals this year. So, and then our upper big hole range rider program will run again this summer. It starts July 1st. Chad he's ready to get out there. Grants, I am working on a proposal for the Livestock Loss Board Foundation, or not foundation, Livestock Loss Board, which I'll be submitting at the end of the month. And that funds our range rider program and carcass program. And then we're supposed to be sub-recipients of this America's Beautiful Challenge grant in the Regional Conservation Partnership Program grant. But those have they're both just being hit with some delays, so. Okay, great. Everybody likes to talk on the microphone.
The American Beautiful grant, almost went away a week and a half ago due to some red tape. It's clawing its way back. It's going to be a staged approach now. And so I think it's going to take a little longer to get on the ground. And that'll be through part of the Rockies and Montana Fish Wildlife and Parks. The RCPP, I just came out with a meeting on that about an hour ago. And we're days away from signing that. So we will have sign-ups starting late this summer and early fall. None of the money will get to the ground. I'll go to individual ranchers on, for range riders. There's some carcass composting work available. How that final program looks is still up in the air and will be until I think we have a meeting in early June. But it's coming. It's grinding inflation along.
It's coming along. Thank you, Rick. That's really all I've got today.
Any other updates on the grizzly bear and your work?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, other than that, just been engaging with proposals, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, all these proposals, the deadline is today, but like all of these. Well, cool. I'll start off on some good news for us. Tan's pulling this up, but yeah, right after our meeting last week, I found out that I got fully funded for this planting project that I've been working on. Out of Wise River, to be at Elk Home Ranch, Zucker's Place. So I asked for $221,000 and got fully funded for it. So that was pretty awesome. I was really surprised actually that I got fully funded because during the campaign, called me, hey. So anyway, this is gonna happen, and I'm really excited about it. And it's about 6,000 linear feet of unvegetated banks that we're gonna plant with willows. This is just kind of what they look like. And we're gonna basically willow trench and revegetate all of these banks. We're gonna fence it, about 1.5 miles of fencing that we're gonna install. I have some exclosure plots that we're gonna do throughout here that we're gonna basically have 8-foot tall exposure fence and plant a ton of aspen and cottonwood in there and get some cottonwood and aspen galleries. And that sucked up a little bit of budget for sure. And then there's some bank reshaping and sloping involved. I figured since we're gonna have a machine out there, we might as well take care of the running banks out there. So very excited about that, and I think right now, nothing's gonna happen this year, but I think by the time this year, or next year, this time, this will be running and gunning next spring. Okay, some more good news. I got a call from the Forest Service that they said, hey, you want $35,000 more in your participating agreement. And of course I said yes. And this is all gonna go towards our Trail Creek Conifer Encroachment Project. We started this last year. We did 502 acres last year. And now we can use this 35K to finish up these units that I've circled in red here. This is along Highway 43 on your way up to Lost Trail. And it's all just open, it's, you know, riparian meadow, conifer encroachment. And so, yeah, once this hits the bank account, then I can get the contract going and try to get some guys hired on to do it. You know, last year I had some guys out just under 5 days and they cut 502 acres. So this is 232 acres. So should happen pretty quick. The hardest part will be to get the contracting going. There's 16 guys on this crew. They cut 100 acres in the day. Yeah. Guatemalan guys. And then they just stay up and play soccer. They don't eat. They don't drink water. They're aliens. Okay, I wanted to touch on this project because I'm pretty excited about it. This is where I've been working with Jim. Jim's really kind of the lead, if you will. This is sort of his baby, but we're involved and partnered on it. Happy to be involved with it. It's a spring creek just out of Wise River on Fisheries place. And right now, the story is that the channel's over widened and that's not able to flush line set. Because of velocities just aren't head gates that are controlled. Without the right width to depth ratios and the geometry in the stream, you're just not gonna get the right spawning gravels.
Thank you for making it to the bank.
Just kind of just whole baby here, but the whole idea is to narrow that channel, bring in washed gravels.
That truck's still running outside.
Create that spawning.
If there's shitty truck, maybe if it's still running outside.
By constricting the channel, it's kind of hard to tell from outside this map here, which is the green areas. You will create the right amount of velocity for
Chevy truck
streams and clean up the vines, but not so much where it's scouring out. It's kind of a fine line we're trying to play here. But the good thing about it is that it's controlled. It's Spring Creek, so we have sort of utilization on our side. So we just got this application submitted today, actually. And fingers crossed that we'll get it for this one. A good tracker.
All right, we'll start like we always do with introductions.
This is just a schematic from the designs that we've been working with Tester Tech on.
Pedro Marquez, he's
Kind of see, this is the width, depth here. It's over widened, so we're gonna bring in all of this green material, constrict the channel. This is all gonna be new substrate, new gravels. This is an area where we're gonna do the stream bank fill. And then this other area, we're gonna do a couple islands, so that it go around. You're gonna have spawning gravels and habitat on both sides of the island. It's just another way to narrow the channel. This kind of gives you an idea of what the project's gonna look like. This is where the creek is now. We're gonna fill it with native vegetation. And there's some other components that are pretty cool for habitat for young fish. So.
More gravity, rancher, lower.
This right here, yeah, we're gonna do some willow staking, do some fresh willow staking on the new sod mats and fresh willow stirred areas. The more overhanging woody debris and.
Beaver County.
Make sure that you can get in that stream.
Eric Corson, Melrose.
So these fish can have.
Representative Judge Grant.
Belleville Water Restoration Programs Manager, Big Hole Watershed Committee. Okay, this was a fun day, so I was happy to get this project done. Craig gave me a call and said, hey, I got a beaver issue. Can you help me out? And I said, heck yeah, let's do it. And what was happening is that there's some beaver nearby that were chewing some of these cottonwoods. And
Melrose.
of course, you don't want all your trees to get cut down, and so this is just one general mitigation project that we can do. It's just plant your trees. And so that's what we did. We found 7 trees, those cottonwood trees. And there's a big log
thanks,
just
everybody.
downstream on the main stem of the river, and this should take care of it. So that was a fun day that I did this last
Climate
month.
and precip update. Caitlin, you got the
You can
honors
reach out to me if you have anything similar to this. I've been doing it for a couple of years, and we have some money set aside for my time and our time to be involved with these beaver problem mitigation projects.
I'm
So I should be
Caitlin.
able to
So normally it's other Caitlin that does this presentation.
foundation money that we have.
We're both part of the CCAA program, so.
Okay, other
Caitlin,
happenings, some really
Caitlin.
great days on Smith State Springs. I was finally able to get out there and get a first look at the project site. This is Pedro coming out with me.
Okay.
The most fun part of my job is going after restoration or at the winter and seeing its first spring,
Okay,
and seeing how
so-
everything's responded.
Yeah, Caitlin Moore made some
And
slides.
luckily for us, everything's looking really good on Smith State Springs. We
This is a
haven't had
map
anything
of where,
out of
the
ordinary
DNRC
or
gauges
crazy.
are.
There was some
If you go to their
some
website, you
issues that I
can
wanted to
look these
address
up
before
and
potentially a hot
anytime
water event. So
go and look at
just
what
yesterday, we
the
had a
CFS
maintenance
is
day. I had
across
some folks
the
from the
big hole.
DEQ out there, some TNC folks, and Intermountain West Joint
So looking
Venture.
at the Big Hole
Some
River
volunteers
below
came
Big
out
Lake
and
Creek,
basically just tried to address some of the issues that were occurring.
as you can
because my
see,
hand.
the CFS has increased.
And one of them being water was coming out of the.
high
tip of the
flows
truck
is
channel.
starting, and
Little nip
it's
holes
sitting
between
just
the
above
stone that we installed.
200.
And that's generally okay. We
Big
want
Hole
that.
River below Mud Creek
Project.
near
We want
Wisdom.
as much water spreading out up there as
Again, you can see that CFS increasing,
But not when
and
it's
we
so
are
bare,
above
going after the
1,000.
project, right? We want vegetation growing in. Once
At
that
Beacon
goes,
Rock,
then water can go anywhere it wants, but
again,
for now.
flows are
I wanted to
increasing,
make sure
and we're
we
just
get water
below that
back into the
2,000
stream
CFS.
channel, because that's where we've constructed all of our great.
Near Melrose,
Pardon me.
just
Make
below
sure-
2,000
make sure
CFS.
So. That's some of the stuff.
Near
that we did
Glen,
yesterday.
again, just
And
below that
for
2,000
playing rough
CFS.
This year, this is like an example of where the water came out, and I wanted to dig in.
Big
more of the
hole
here and
below
make sure
Hamilton
that we're
Ditch
slowing the
near
water
Twin
down as
Bridges.
much as possible. Once the water hits these logs.
We are
it
now
reflects
above
itself.
that 1,000
You know,
CFS,
just have
and this one has
a
had a
linear
big increase.
Path for the water to cut down. But
Looking at
overall,
our
very
snow
impressive
water
way it looks.
equivalent,
I think it's
right
gonna
now,
respond
the
really
big
well
hole,
as we
we're
get into
at
growing season.
79%. That has been increasing recently with
Okay, so
the
other
snow and
things, I
rain we've
finished
had.
up our Upper Oregon Creek.
For a while there, it was
project. This
looking
one that
kind of
we've done
dangerous, but we
over the
just
years
got
now.
into the green the first time this season,
It's all
so.
similar to the work that
that's
we do in the
exciting.
natural resources damage program, but I wrote the final report, finally got it out and closed that grant out, so that took some time out of my day to do that, but it feels good. A couple of weeks or months ago, I showed you guys the outreach form for this thing, so now that this is finally done.
93% is
up there
normal.
on site,
Yeah,
and then we're last off,
relative
this
to
is
the
awesome.
elevation
Outreach
where the
form we have
snowpack
on
is
project, get it on
concentrated.
the YouTube page.
Yes,
Right.
and a lot of the
In
snowpack is
algorithms.
still on that
So
high
I'm excited to
elevation.
get that out, and
That's all
let the public get their eyes on it. I've just been doing a lot more planning in the Anaconda uplands with NRD.
Yep.
We're gonna have
Thank you for the
a
assistance.
project load up there with them, like we always do.
Looking at precipitation for the year,
Doing that.
we're at snow,
And then
79%
lastly, I'll
of
just touch
medium,
on, we've been working with the youth employment
it's still looking
program
pretty
on
good,
tributary
and
Trapper
hopefully
Creek,
continues.
use conifer encroachment on 100 feet on each side of the.
So our climate outlook,
And
in
those guys have been working
the
on that
next
for
week or two,
probably
the temperature is looking below
and
normal,
we're just wrapping up
and
that contract.
precipitation
I think
is going to
they're
be
gonna get it
slightly
all
above
done with
normal,
money that I
so
have,
these are
so
looking really great.
that's good news. Got
Seasonally,
about 10 acres of conifer encroachment.
it is
done already.
predicted that
It's
here in the
trapper
big
tributary.
hole,
And
we're
the
gonna
really cool
be
thing about that is that we've
likely,
already done in-stream
but
shutoff.
higher than normal
In-stream
in
enhancement
temperature,
out there.
and it's kind of mixed for precipitation. We're gonna be below normal to normal, or equal chances.
So yeah, that's what I got.
This is looking at drought, and as we can see here, you're all good.
Okay, any additional items or business items not on the agenda?
There is a chance of a moderate drought is what we're predicting.
Yes, Jim Keenan is on the agenda.
So
Jim has.
this summer may be drier than normal, but I'm still very hopeful we have a good year. And that is all. Hopefully I substituted Caitlin well enough.
Before I showed up, but no, I was gonna show you the slides after that tonight, so. That's not part of my presentation. Jen said she'd like to see 15 or 20 minutes. I feel like I probably got more than that, so I'll talk fast, but hopefully not so
Yes,
fast. So.
that's a good question. The CCAA program
Superintendent.
decided to implement a drought
And I
plan
came to talk tonight about some of the big projects that we have.
to help
in design.
this upcoming summer, if it ends up dry.
Water treatment plant,
Essentially,
replacement project, that's.
we
the
are going to
existing
try
filter.
and
At the old water treatment.
put more
plant,
water
that
out into
filter's
the
gonna be torn out
floodplain
and
this
replaced with a
spring
new
while the
one.
flows are high.
This
that
is lower
sponge
down,
absorbs
that
it.
project is under contract, that's about a 2.8.
So the flow triggers are slightly different this spring than
Very soon
normal.
here, and this is the basic.
and that's only for regions A, B, and C.
Days ago.
So
That
does
project is
not
actually
apply to
underway,
regions D and E.
Under construction currently, so I want to give you a little more detail about each of these projects.
The entire
Before I do that,
program ends up
I'd like to give
being,
you a
I am,
little overview of history.
cannot remember
of
off the top of my
water
head where.
systems, all these projects need context.
do you remember where C ends?
Next slide, you have a signal for next slide.
I don't remember.
This is kind of a prehistoric view of water system. This map is from 1890.
So normally our flow triggers in the spring are higher.
A water plant or a pumping plant somewhere
One of
down
them,
the
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Caitlin has these
Plateau Creek. and
memorized.
Silver
It's like
Creek.
160,
Pumping station there.
20.
Pump water up Montana
Yep,
Street all the
and
way up to a small.
Instead, we're doing
Main
60
Street.
CFS
Up
for regions
around
A,
Copper
B, and
Street.
C
There's
at
also
Wisdom. So they're
flume
all going based off of that 60
11
CFS.
miles south
Wisdom,
of Butte, so before there was ever a reservoir there. Or a
Which
dam there,
essentially-
there was a flume system that brought water.
lowering the trigger. But
But
that trigger number will remain in the summer, which is slightly
At that
higher.
time, there were about 20 miles of
than
mains
normal
in
for
there,
region A
10
and
to
B.
12 inch.
So basically, instead of having a high trigger and a low trigger, we're
Only
gonna
about
keep
half of
it
them
like this.
were served by the water system. There were a lot of
60
individual
CFS that
wells
was
throughout
known
the
for
system,
sections
and there
A,
wasn't a
B, and C.
centralized one only water system.
Hopefully that all makes sense. Let me explain it.
So during these 1860s drought and water shortages swept the viability of what was then a fledgling mining camp along the banks of the
Yeah,
Silver Gulf.
and this
And as the
plan
mining industry
should,
began to grow.
it's not a permanent plan
population
also,
began to grow. The need for a centralized.
this is going to
reliable
be
water
in
system
cases of,
kept going up and up and up, until
drought.
finally.
and
they-
hopefully
well,
this
I
year
guess
we can
the
learn
reason
if
they
it
needed a
was
water
an
system
effective
was more
tool that we
reliable,
can
the
use
other
when
the
there is a
fires.
severe drought year.
Provided the enormous quantity of water very.
when we looked at
quickly,
that
and
snow water
surface waters that
equivalent,
were available.
all of us
Those two
agency
small
people were kind of
streams
starting to
ran
be a
through
little
town,
afraid,
and
thinking it was so
by
low.
mining, milling,
Obviously, it's gone
smelting,
a lot
roads,
higher,
as well as
so,
the general sewage of the inhabitants. So by 1891.
Still may not be a bad year,
we stood at a crossroads,
and I
needed
think there's
reliable water
still
supply to serve the booming
about
mining industry
50-50
growing
odd, we go
population.
into a La Nina,
Go to the next slide.
which could
So
bring
in
on a lot of.
1891, Dennis Bigelow, who was president of the Boston
But I
and
can't
Montana
promise
Mining Company at the time, formed the Butte City
Hopefully that's
Water Company.
So that
May of 1891, Butte City Council ran an exclusive contract for Butte City Water to deliver water
On
to
May
the
1st, they
city's
get
minor
together and
properties
review
and
where
rural
rational fact water
population.
has
Butte City Water won that contracts, won that approval from the Butte City Council because they promised to
And
spend
essentially all
$2
that.
million over the next
So
several
hoping
years.
that
to develop
while there is water,
underlying water supplies.
that you guys can use that water
Go to the next slide.
instead of let it go by. And then.
So the first big project that they took on was the development of the Basin Creek source. These are the two flumes that came from Bear
We haven't got anywhere near that
Creek,
slope,
11
like
miles
that
south
trigger
of
yet.
the city. This is all mineral survey from 1891.
But come like this July,
Current
don't
location
drain
of
the
the
reservoir,
reservoir after they built the dam. This is the reservoir of the dam is located at the
So that-
junction of Bear Creek and Basin.
that
Creek.
trigger is the place that the 10 railings spawn when they're young. And so
Is
that
very
higher
early
flow
in the
trigger is
construction of
the
Basin
flow.
Creek Dam. The first thing
So that
they did
keeps
was
the whole river wet.
and build the foundation
So,
and now
saying
the
if I did
foundation.
slide all
and
those
pipes
rails
over
dry,
the
or
upstream side of the dam.
and around.
And
you don't.
So if you were the photographer of this picture,
Yeah.
you would be under the dam right now.
Well, it's for grading,
The dam with 5,000 downstream side.
And that means we can pass the whole water.
Build the water from the reservoir through the dam and towards the city. So they ended up building this curved masonry structure from
Yes,
granite.
thank you, Jim.
Near the
You did a
area.
much better job
It
than I
was
did.
originally constructed to a height of about 60 feet above the foundation. So I think I covered everything in that slide. One thing that's interesting, go ahead and go to the back one, the last one, real quick. One thing that's interesting, the flume that I keep mentioning was studying water from Masonry and Bear Creek. Continued to
That
operate.
60 is our
Big conservation project. So I think that's the
That
original
is our
There's
trigger.
step one, 4 slides, construction of the dam.
That's
You see the elevated that channel as the dam, no, so it still serve water to the city. So this is an early picture of the Basin Creek Dam construction. All this granite was quarried nearby, all. of the
Any
granite
follow-up questions after?
The dam was all cut and mortared together. And they.
Okay,
like the
thank you.
rail system where they're bringing in, they put the granite over here, and a couple of guys are actually moving a piece of granite over to the project. And
I will actually go fairly quickly now through my director's update.
To me, but.
Thanks everybody for joining us on Zoom.
So this is actually the completion of the original construction. Around, dam started in the spring of 1892 and completed originally in 1895. So that original dam is about 60 feet.
I will be
above
kind
the
of brief. I've
foundation.
just basically been in a
Cut
proposal.
granite and mooring order together,
So
quarried
everything's
in the area.
other than that.
Cool picture of the leaves and
We are
everything.
working, I finally got, it was amazingly difficult.
Okay, so I think this is probably about
necessary to
first
try
starting
to
fill the dam from the very first
negotiate
time.
indirect cost rate for our projects.
From those
It's just good business, just like pretend like you're a business,
Next
you
slide.
need enough with
So,
all of your work and hours to cover everything else other than the work that you're
down
doing,
by
right? So,
13 feet. With this man.
I now know the directions to go in, I've actually done some of the calculations already.
Basically construction.
They say it takes 45 days, so I read on.
And then in 1913, they added this last concrete. And this is kind of the side.
Maybe it's pretty quick.
Cut slice out.
So I'll dive into that.
Side.
This
This
week,
original construction.
this month coming up.
And then this.
Still waiting with the forest also to update our Elkhorn
downstream side.
agreements. That's for the Elkhorn Mine and Mill Big Remedy project that that's doing.
Where the problem is.
The existing partnership agreement is the multi-year agreement
And then in
as the
1930,
phases of the project progress.
Fill to the downstream
The
side.
forest finds more money and chunks that into that agreement so we can keep our contractors going.
The next
So,
slide, I've got a downstream
talking
picture of
about
that concrete that was added.
So we are currently, we have
a cool picture of
a document called an ECA, it's Environmental
So-
Evaluation / Cost Analysis. This is the alternatives analysis decision-making
So
tool
that kind of completed the
that the
development
forest
of the Basin
uses
Creek
under
water system,
Superfund
which was the first big step.
to start laying, kind of like a NEPA
Water system for the city. of
process,
Butte.
where you're
Next
laying
step was
out,
the development
these are all the things we could do.
But before I move on
Here's
to
the
that, I
benefit
said
of all of
talk a
these
little
different
bit
approaches
about
and
Basin
the
Creek
relative
watershed,
cost
that
of the
main
different
watershed
approaches
as Bear
for
Creek
each one of the reasons we choose to do this one.
It's about
That's
12 square
the
miles.
decision that then moves into an action item.
Because on the other side of the Continental Divide, there's two
That's the phase that we're at right now.
tributaries
Is going through the draft ECA,
that naturally drain.
but basically at this point, we know the direction we're going, which is
But they built these high elevation intakes of
1,000 cubic yards of
ground
contaminated
water
dirt
from that.
from 3 discrete locations around the Elkhorn mine site. It's going to get dug up,
into
hauled to a repository that's actually 3 miles
It's pretty
away.
clever what they were able to do to get water back in.
And so that public process will continue. As far as the forest doing its due diligence, in the meantime, we're getting 30% design under an existing contract with our engineers, and the forest just. putting
Yeah,
more
we
money
actually
for us
have
to
a
get to
second water
100%
bank on this
design.
water, so.
All the details of what that whole construction is gonna look like. 50,000 cubic yards is a lot of haul trucks. So designing exactly the details of how this all gets
The
done.
great water supply, but
The
still
price
not
tag
enough
on the whole
provide
project
water
is probably somewhere in the $3 million range. And the forest is
That's why
gonna
they
be
needed to develop the big
looking
ones.
around for funding for all of that.
Everybody
That'll come
recognizes
through
that old
the
pump
watershed
station over there with the
committee.
big smokestack
We'll
that's
do the
just down the road
contracting
from us
and
here.
all of that in the time.
And that's inside that
Probably
old
not
pump
for long.
station.
So we're going to go to the next
What's
one.
the repository? What that's gonna be
Also
like?
part of the
Yes.
development of the visual supplies.
So the repository, there is an existing repository.
So
When they did an action in
4 million gallons of
2000s,
water.
they removed, back when the elder, if anyone remembers the elder, that there were big piles of orange dirt right next to the water.
That water from South
Here, that's not
gravity flow.
So
All
they
the way into the Butte to the west side
all of that and put it in a repository. And these, what you're looking for is a repository somewhere in an upland setting that's flat,
Still take.
and
And then
you
from the
know,
west side
away
of
from
the
running water,
water,
away from water sources,
pump up to the
where you're just not gonna get contamination
So
spewing
right
out
inside of the slide, that's up north.
somewhere in back downstream. So they have a good site for that. We have done a repository investigation already, so
So
we got
that
a
also
grant from BRC just to do
across the Congo.
the assessment of that site to see if there's enough room
water
to
around
accommodate the
27 miles
extra
across the divide.
dirt.
And it was the
And
only
the
system at
site
the time
passed
to
with
move
white
water
colors,
across the
so
US at the time.
we know where we're
Water
taking it. That was really-
Pacific drainage.
That was a big hurdle to get there. If we didn't have that repository, I don't know if the project becomes feasible. At the end of the day, the whole distance, when you have to make
But for South
5,000 or 6,000 trips with a truck, the whole distance becomes the key factor. Price wise.
And then South Fork is for a separate system, also the I'll be talking about that a little bit more here shortly. But anyway, the completion of that,
I think there's a lot of
system
system
for
for
city water.
it's gonna be dug in
Construction, you had
and
another.
buried, with a liner on top so that it doesn't get, water doesn't penetrate in.
That was about 240 million gallons of water.
And those are some of the alternatives, right? You could have done a repository with a bottom liner
Supplies a pretty
also.
small percentage of our overall water supply.
Way more expensive, and what they determined in the ECA is that you get like marginally, you go from 96%
We didn't have
full of contaminants to 97%, but you had
have to come from the
X hundreds of thousands of dollars, and
At
that just,
27 miles, lifted through five.
that's what that whole document is walking people through that decision process.
So
And then
the
there's always a
whole
do
makes
nothing
a lot of
alternative.
sense. So now I think we're gonna get
Costs
back
nothing.
into the projects, kind of modern day and where we're at. Okay. Go to the next slide.
So that's where that project is, just coming along, I signed off on, another agreement with the forest, updating our trail creek work that Ben had been doing last year. They gave us more money to finish some riparian work
So this kind
there
of sums up the
and
watershed
do
system.
conifer encroachment in the eastern
Actually,
Pine
5
Mountains.
municipal
So,
watersheds.
well, that's just,
The Big Hole River,
look
which
at
is the
long, it
big
only took
one.
us 5
This
years.
is
so
the
it's
area
it's
of
finally got a forestry program
drains to.
going, which was the whole intent when we hired him.
Divide.
But here
I
we
think
are.
that's about 2,000
Now
miles,
he's a forestry guy
2,000 square miles.
And a riparian restoration wizard.
Pump station, or that portion, that piece of the pie.
We got
There's a small watershed over here.
proposals out the door
Used
just
to
last
pump up
month.
to South Fork
We're trying to get irrigation infrastructure funded at White River and Cherry
That's
Creek.
about 4.5 square miles,
Putting
that watershed, these two.
Investigation of the potential line meadow storage using low-tech
low-tech
techniques to just get the soils in our high alpine meadows flooded out and saturated. The soil sponge concept. It's the same thing flood
This
irrigators
watershed
do
system I already talked about.
but not way up high in the mountains,
Watershed, we don't have
in
a,
meadows.
water treatment plant.
So we want to see what, if you look across the big hole, how many of these meadow areas are there?
And we also.
Which ones are feasible to actually do this work in?
To the more
There
water
might be any
treatment
conflicts
plant.
with
With
fisheries,
the new
et
Bay
cetera, et
Street
cetera,
water
et
treatment
cetera.
plant, a new pump station that we built.
It's low-hanging fruit type projects, we get them lined
We
out.
can now take
We
water
have
from
a
that
sort of
Basin Creek supply when we have excess
A
water.
laundry list of places to go to do
Excess
some good work.
capacity for the water treatment
Resource.
plant. Pump it up
Um,
into these higher elevation.
Pennington Bridge project, we have been working on for years, and design is on its way this year.
Basin
We have
Creek
money
used to
from the
provide
DRC for that.
35% of our city's water supply.
We're just,
Now on a decent.
these are biennial, grant programs, so we figured not wait, go in for implementation dollars now, even though the designs are not ready.
Next
We'll
slide.
see how that goes.
Now, we're into the current project, so this is.
And
that
obviously, if any of these are not familiar, I think
1913
we can talk afterwards, but just in the
Because Basin
For
Creek
time
Dam is
moving forward,
classified as a high hazard dam by the Montana Department of Natural Resources.
So the Elkhorn, we asked the DNRC to just
We have to have it inspected.
put that in the mail today. We asked them for $300,000
inspection
max to
described numerous
line
cracks,
information
falling, and
program.
signs of severe deterioration of the
10%
concrete on the upstream face of the
That's a
dam.
great sign. They
Those concrete
funded a lot of
identified in
grants, so I feel
previous
pretty good
inspections,
about
because
this.
it really good to set up.
between that 2014.
Covered it.
and
Okay,
2016.
a couple other things that just kind of came across my desk that I
And
thought
kind of
I'd
DNRC comments on
mention.
that 2019
A
inspection
finding
report.
of no significant
There's
impact
concerns of the
was
concrete deterioration.
found
could
at
impact
Rock
the ability
Lakes,
of the dam
so
to withstand
FWP going in and removing
top
beaver
sections
dams in
of
the
the dam
spring
could fail in extreme storms.
was assessed
So
to have no
DNRC
significant
concrete
impact.
investigation,
So
stability analysis.
Hopefully that is all they needed to move forward
Of that concrete.
and start doing that work. We'll see what happens with litigation on that one.
Of doing that investigation.
And
was
then
we
the
would
Red
be
Rock
forced to
Lakes,
ensure the water
Fish Wildlife Service I saw this morning actually did have a lawsuit filed on them for their grazing management at Cloud Refuge. The litigants, it's the typical litigants
Suggested we pursue the
claiming
plan
that, U.S. Fish Wildlife Service is not monitoring, tracking grazing and its impacts on the refuge, wildlife habitat, potentially endangered species, those things. So
So this was conducted in November of
staying
2019.
far away from this is my
Report
report.
was completed in January of
allow me
2020.
to
This is
say.
actually a picture that was taken of myself and the engineer that
We also had one interesting meeting with Fish, Wildlife and Parks, Vanna last year in November presented on the sage grouse
And this is that
studies, the pronghorn studies that she had done. She got a group of us together in Wisdom, really to just try to leverage that data and make the
Some
most
of their
use of it.
calculations that they
Scientists
did.
wanna do
The report
studies
concluded that the mass
One of the
concrete
things that we
section
want
does
that
not satisfy the
knowledge
rotational
to
stability
be put to
or
work.
sliding
So
stability
it was
requirements.
Vanna
and
sort of
profitable
lead to all of
outcome.
us, and she started sharing some of those data layers with us.
Urgency to repair the mass
Here's
concrete
where the
portion.
pronghorn are migrating,
And
here's
that
where the sage
report
grouse
recommended
necks are.
3 different repair
And that helps us
alternatives
as
to
we're
address those
looking around for
concerns.
project opportunities, if you can match up.
So the next step was
resource-based
required an engineer to
project
do a
nearby
preliminary
sage
engineering
grouse necks,
investigation where they
increases your
study
chances of
those
funding
three
and
alternatives that were presented
so,
in that concrete
That's
investigation.
great, all good
And this
partnership
is
building
the
stuff.
alternative that was brought.
That's all I have.
This is what is being constructed right now. Probably got home for the day, but they're out there working on this on my. So, alternative is to remove this top, well, that's all removing the parapet wall.
But yes,
top of
that is
top
some of the spring.
feet.
Yeah.
Then they're gonna remove
Um,
3.5
I'll give you
feet of
details
that
about
old
that.
concrete that was added in 1913.
Other questions?
And then they're gonna remove, after that's all removed, they're gonna remove about 14 inches of that
Steering
old
material
deteriorated
is
concrete
nice.
off of the face of the dam into the old concrete, about 14 inches. And that'll all be replaced with new concrete. This whole top section will be replaced with new concrete, have a new parapet wall. And then about every 20 feet across that curved structure of the dam, there will be these post tension anchors drilled down into that original masonry construction. I think there's gonna be a total of 12 of those. There are 2-inch diameter anchors that are driven down into the masonry, gravity at the bottom, and each one of those anchors is stretched and put under about 180,000 pounds of tension because this concrete top down to that masonry wall. So if you go to the next picture, I've got a top view of where those anchors are gonna be located across the top of the dam. So this is at the top of the dam, looking down, this is gonna be the location of those 12 post tension anchors, and then this is just kind of the graphical representation of those anchors, looking at it from the reservoir side. They'll see them, they'll be inside the concrete, that'll be the location of those 12 anchors across the dam.
We will.
That red line is the concrete masonry interface, so I think they're about 30
Any questions for the steering?
That's the bonds on. Right now, that'll be bonded.
Yeah, so I timed my remote work to
Final
October
design,
16th.
when we went through the
When we get
preliminary
to the
engineering
October
process,
meeting
when we
here,
put together
on that.
grant applications, the alternative was supposed to be about $2.5 million all in engineering and a bunch of resources and investigations.
Up next, Tana.
Construction. This
She does all the
alternative
things.
turned out to be $3.5 million just for construction. Engineering and everything else, about $1 million. So, next slide, what do we have?
I'm expendable, she's not.
Oh, this is a drone video that was just taken today. So if you can push play on that, you can see on this section where they've got it fenced off, that's where they've removed that top parapet wall. This is that interface between the concrete and the masonry from 1913. You know, we got the reservoir really lowered for this project, which is not something we're real thrilled about, but we don't have any choice. But you can see the condition of that parapet wall across the top as they move across the dam, what a tough shape that's in. See where they remove one section of the parapet, That's something that really strong.
Sure, I haven't got two slides.
They're working on big barns.
All right, so just a quick note on communications. We'll be at the Montana Folk
Oh, is that
Festival
what's
this year,
happening?
July
Okay,
12th
all right.
to 14th of Butte.
A little bit slow, so anyway, that parapet, once it's removed all the way across the top, they're going to remove another 3 foot, 6 inches below that.
Festival about
That bad concrete on the upstream face.
watershed committee.
So it's a great project, great that we're doing it. The downside is we have to hold the water about that. Water surface elevation is about 50, 70. Water surface elevation, water surface
So, and we did
level is
this
about
year, we did grants through the
56.
Montana
So
Association
that's
of
about
Conservation
23
Districts, which
million
will
gallons
fund
of water.
our some of the stuff that we're gonna need for our Canada Folk Festival. Our fans with Valley, we're gonna get here for our videos.
Yeah, this is basically down number 1.
That's exciting, we just started out last
Outreach
May.
contractors.
And then our wildlife speaker series, I finally pinned down all the details for that, so we'll be in here.
So it's going to be a really good job so far. This got started in March. So. And that's good.
We'll have a hot lunch with elk burgers, which were generously donated by.
So it's coming off the top is
And
there's a bunch of area down below the dam. It's all muddy.
If you carry them. And then the presentation will be at 7 and it will be on grizzly bears. So the meal is at 6 and the presentation is 7. So, all right, there's some fun events going on.
There's a lot of the.
And then the grizzly bear topic is right in time because I didn't include a picture, but there have been
I don't think that.
photographs
They were
floating
building
around the
something
grizzly bear by
this town's gonna be
Weiser.
played out in 10 years and nobody's gonna care if it's down here or not.
And our harvest removal and composting program is up and running. Our new driver, Justin Cottingham,
That's
he's
why
been
we're
great.
doing it. That's why I'm so
And
happy
he's
to do
picked
it
up
now.
39 carcasses from 12 producers. It's actually pretty low in
No,
terms of
no, that's
carcasses,
construction.
but that's pretty high in terms of.
And it's all been buttressed and kind
So
of
I think
pasted
that's
that
a
down.
win for everybody because the mild
Yeah,
temperatures.
tough to beat Mother Nature.
Conditions just help people
Well,
not
it's good.
lose too many animals this year. So, and then our upper Bickle Ranger program will run again this summer. It starts July 1st. Chad he's ready to get out there. And, grants, I am working on a proposal for the
So I
Livestock
just
Loss
wanted to
Board
provide a
Foundation.
little
Livestock Loss Board,
information on how important this
which I'll be
project
submitting
is.
instead of the
We've
other
got
one.
data
And that
on
fund
how
our
much
return
water we
program
would
and
draw
grants
every year
program.
from the big
And
river
then
going all the way
the-
back to 1916.
We're supposed to be
But I just went from
some recipients of this
2000
American Beautiful
I
Challenge
did
grant
6-year averages.
and the Regional
That was
Conservation
basically
Partnership
water
Program
treatment
grant.
plant. First full year,
those
6 full years of operation were
they're both just
2018 through 2023.
delays.
We did about half of 17 before it came online.
Okay, great.
Of course, we're not finished in 2024. So these are the 3 previous 6-year averages of our withdrawals from Big Hole River, going back to the year 2000. You can see, since we've had basically water treatment plants online, new pump stations flying its way back, how much our withdrawals to Big Hole River been reduced, approaching about 50%. This period of time includes the 2021, where we really took our reservoirs down about sparsely good. And then taking quite a bit of water from the river in 2021. We took quite a bit of water over our starting reservoirs. We were this summer, 2 early fall year, probably this last year. We got the Alexanders all summer that we had to kind of shut Basin Creek down and hold our big water from the river. So even with those, really bad year and those troubles, we're taking about 50% of final. Final program. That kind of just helps tell the story of how this was there. It will be until I think it will be early June. Bolton Dam, a little bit on the need for that project, that's that reservoir north of the shield, it only provides about 10% of our city's water supply, but it was reclassified as high hazard by DNRC in August of 2019 as a result of some new development downstream of the dam. High hazard designation really doesn't have much to do with the condition of the dam, it has more to do with what's downstream of the dam, so even after Basin Creek and Mold, they're all fixed up in really good condition, they're still be high hazard dams, just population downstream. But anyway, we had to have this one inspected by a professional engineer as a result of that high hazard designation. Some of the findings of that preliminary, that first engineering report were significant structural issues.
Well, cool, I'll start off on some good news for us.
So that's
Tan's
the
pulling
concrete
this up,
entrance to the
but,
spillway.
yeah, right after our monthly meeting last week, I found out that about fully
Especially
funded
down
for
in the base of the
this planting
spillway,
project.
the walls are actually starting to.
Out of Wise River,
You can
the
see
Telephone Ranch, the old Zucker's
There
place.
provides stability. They're starting
So I asked for $221,000 and got fully funded for it, so that's.
That downstream
That's pretty
conveyance
awesome.
channel is a
I was
really, really
really
important.
surprised actually
Beach
that I
front
got
on
full funded
that.
because they were reviewing kind of why they think that it, they give you time.
Water feeds outside of this conveyance channel downstream.
So anyway, this is gonna happen, and I'm really excited about it, and it's, about 6,000 linear feet of vegetated banks that we're gonna plant with willows.
Report also called out the poor condition of the upstream
And we're gonna
equipment.
basically
So
willow
this
trench
liner was
and
placed in
revegetate these banks, we're gonna fence it
Place this liner.
about a mile and a half of fencing that we're gonna install. I have some exclosure plots that we're gonna do throughout here that we're gonna
Down into the
basically
bottom.
have 8-foot tall exclosure fences, plant a ton of that aspen and cottonwood in there.
So
And,
our
get
fix
some
is going
cottonwood
to
and aspen
be
galleries.
next slide.
And, that sucked up a little bit of budget for sure.
We're gonna be.
And then there's some bank
We're covering
reshaping
that
slowly.
whole upstream liner, which
I
goes
figured
all
since
the
we're
way
gonna have a machine
across
out
the
there.
upstream face of the dam,
take care
around
of
the south bank of the
the
dam.
banks over there.
With
So,
this fabric form.
very excited about that, and I think right now, nothing's gonna happen in this year, but I just
Lay that out, sew it together
This
in
year,
corners and then
next year,
pump it
this
full of
time.
concrete.
this will be.
This is the
running,
side profile of the dam now.
Next spring.
That liner to that concrete, that's not gonna go all the way down the base of the dam, it's gonna go down below the normal.
Okay, some more good news. I got a call from the Forest Service, that they said, hey, you want 35 more.
This will be the new
$35,000
concrete
more in your
entrance to the
participating
spillway
agreement.
channel, and that's gonna be.
Of course, I said yes.
That new concrete.
And, this is all
to
Gonna go towards our trail
outside diameter
recon encroachment project. We
HDPE
started
pipe
this
is
last
gonna be
year.
about 350 feet long.
502 acres
Now
last
we're into
year.
new energy dissipation
And, now
structure down at the
we've used
bottom
this
of the dam.
35K to finish up.
This new
These
spillway
units that
channel.
I've circled
It's
in
gonna
red
have this
here.
OG
This is
crest
along
channel.
Highway
It's gonna
43
increase the
on your way up
water
to
surface elevation
Lost Trail.
of the reservoir by about
And,
2 feet.
It's all just open, just, right area, meadow, conifer encroachment.
Reservoir that we can store.
And so, yeah,
This
once
project
this
is about
hits the bank account, then I can get the
$2.8
contract going and try to get
Under
some guys
contract
hired
as of a few days ago, and we have.
Last year I had some guys out there for
Next week or.
just under 5 days and they cut 502 acres, so this is 232 acres, so it should happen pretty quick. The hardest part of the contract is
Oh, okay. Hopefully I won't do that.
16 guys.
Okay, that's good.
Cut 100 acres in a day.
So, and this is the mold filter, the mold water treatment plant came online in
Waterline,
nineteen
yes.
ninety-five.
Honduras.
It came online.
They play soccer
This
all
filter
night.
tank.
And then they just stay up and play soccer, they don't eat,
Process.
they
There's
don't
4
drink water.
individual filter cells here that operate independently of each other. They're filled with a bunch of.
Okay, I wanted to touch on this project because I'm pretty excited about it. This is one I've been working with Jim on, and Jim's really kind of the lead, if you will. This is sort of his baby, but we're involved and we're partnered on
He
it.
is also suspended on
Happy
this
to be
top
involved with
plate
it.
here.
It's a spring creek just out of Wise River on Pete Camper's place. And,
Plate sits on a still.
Right now, the
Tank sits
story
on a
is
steel
that
plate.
the channel's overwide and it's not able to flush fine sediment out of the creek. The velocities just aren't right. There's a couple head gates that
It's
are
gonna
controlling
fail
the
here at
roads.
some point, and we're gonna have a lot of water break.
But without the right
This
width
plant was
depth
originally
ratios,
designed to filter about 2.5 million gallons per day, but it's never been
gallons and varying habitat for
So
round
we're gonna
trout.
take out this filter and install this new, this is
Yeah,
actually
kind of
computer
just
rendering
a
of the
whole
water
baby,
treatment
but the whole
plant.
idea is to
New
narrow
membrane filtration
that channel,
system
bring in wash gravels and
This one, we have
create that
60%
spawning
designed out
habitat for
later
fish.
this month.
And by
and
constricting
additional
the channel,
construction in
kind of hard to
December.
tell from
So hopefully.
this
we'll
map
have
here, which is the
reservoirs
big
covered
green
in that
areas.
construction project.
You will create the right amount of velocity
After
over
the old water
the
treatment
streams
plants.
and clean out the fines, but not
Next
so
year.
much where it's scouring out.
This is about a
Fine line to try to-
project, so we're putting.
To play here, the good thing about it is that it's controlled, it's a
But
spring creek, so
hopefully
we
we have
have
more water available.
sort of manipulation on our side on this one. So, we just got this application submitted today, actually, and fingers crossed that we'll get funded for this one again.
Sure.
Pretty good track record.
Yeah, these, I should give. Oh, this one? That's.
This
Yeah,
is
this
just
is the
a
very
schematic
bottom
from
of
the
this
designs
page,
that we've been
so
working with
there's
Tetra
all
Tech
these
on.
different- I
I'm
should
trying to
have some
see
better pictures of the
This is
media,
the-
but this
the
is
width,
basically
depth
finished
here.
water.
It's over wide,
After that
so we're
water
gonna bring in all
percolates
this
through all
green,
those
green
layers of media.
material, construct the channels. This is all gonna be new substrate, new gravels.
All those layers.
This
of
is an
media
area where
suspended
we're
on
gonna do this stream bank
this-
fill.
This is at
And
the
then this
bottom of the
other
filter,
area,
so
we're
all
gonna
those
do a
media
couple
layers of media
islands.
are on top of this plate.
So we'll just go around,
Little
you're gonna have spawning
circular things here that you can see
gravels
where
and
finished water.
habitat on both sides of the island.
Drains down
It's just
into
another
this,
way to narrow the channel and
this
get it
area at the
capacity.
bottom of the filter, and then
This
these
area.
from the bottom.
This kind of gives you an idea of what the project's gonna look like.
And then there's steel on the
This is
bottom.
where
of
the
tank,
creek is
so
now,
corroded
but we're gonna
to
fill it
your-
with
the
native
water is actually
vegetation.
seeping out onto.
And there's some other components that are pretty cool for
That whole filter's
habitat for
really tough
fish that
shape,
we're
needs to
gonna-
come out and be replaced. These are microfiltration membrane modules. So
This right here, yeah, we're gonna do some
each
willow
one of those
staking,
individual
do some
calls,
fresh willow staking on the new sod
filtration
mats
module.
and these freshly
So that'll give us
distributed.
a firm capacity of 2.5
More
million gallons.
overhanging woody debris and just kind of complex nature that you
I don't
can
know,
get
how
in
many
that
more times do we have enough
stream.
minutes to talk about fuels reduction?
Better, so these fish can have some safety. as they- they're going on.
Enough time, yeah. Are you gonna come more interesting, Jim, coming up next?
Okay, this was a fun day. I was happy to get this project done. Craig gave me a call and said, hey, I got a beaver issue.
Yeah, we've got a big project.
Can you help me
that's gonna
out?
be
And I
Really
said,
taking off
heck yeah.
for
let's
real
do
this
it.
year. We've done some
And,
smaller projects over the
What was
past couple
happening
of
is that
years,
there's
so.
some beaver nearby that were trimming some of these cottonwoods and
2,300
of
acres.
course, you don't want all your trees to get cut down and
And they also.
since it's just one beaver mitigation project that we can do, it's just venture trees. That's what we did. We got
Yeah, we
7
have to do
trees
about
of
3,000
cottonwood
acres
trees.
of the
And there's
7,700 acres.
big logs just downstream on the St. Lawrence River and, this should take care of it. So that was a fun day that I did this last month. Great.
I don't know.
Again, reach out to me if you have anything.
Yeah,
Similar to
when
this,
all those
we've been
trees
doing it for
get
a couple
died,
years,
use them, you know,
and
the
we have some
concentration of
money set
organic
aside
carbon.
for my
We
time,
need
our time,
comments in
involved
trees.
with these beaver.
That organic carbon reacts with the chlorine disinfectant. The chlorine disinfectant
Pay for the fencing.
forms halo
from
cedar
gravity
gases, which are regulated disinfection byproducts. So when filtration plants were
Okay, other
built in
happenings,
Mold,
um,
and for the Molten back in the
some really
nineties,
great
State
days
Drinking Water Act.
on Smith
Mason
City
Street was
Springs.
so
Was
pristine,
when
they got a
get out there,
filtration
look
waiver.
at the
They
project
didn't
site,
have to build a
Pedro
filtration
coming out with
plant
me.
for that. But when we exceeded the
Last one part of my
MCR,
job is
maximum
going
contaminant
after
level, we're
restoration,
able to see the gases.
as the winter
Lots
seasons
of
versus spring, seeing how it reduces responded.
And that's what prompted the
And
construction.
luckily for us,
phase.
everything's looking really good. On Smith City Springs, just haven't had anything that's out of the ordinary or crazy. There was some issues that I wanted to address before potentially our high water event, so I came in and just,
I don't think really yet, but that's our concern.
yeah,
Is
yesterday,
that
we had
after
a maintenance
the
day.
watershed. is
I had
huge.
some folks from the DEQ out there, some TNC
Fall
folks.
is logical time now, so our concern
And,
is.
Intermountain West Joint Venture, some volunteers came out and,
That would
basically just tried to address some of
Storage
the
any
issues that we're
vegetation
trying
on
to
the
bring
ground, and then all
to
that material. would be
one of them
easily
being water was
mobilized
coming
by
out of the
snowpack
chip construction
storms
channels.
that end up in our mountain, so. This little video I put together is about 3.5 minutes. This guy doesn't need any introduction, so I'll just go ahead and bring him on and tell us what's going on with our fishery. No, yeah, we're here for you. I just got folks here way later. Pedro said I had to be done by 11 o'clock. Exactly. Go ahead and go to the next one. So, you go to the next one. Yeah. Oh.
Oh, sorry.
All right, I'm gonna jump right into our population numbers. We do fish population estimates in 4 sections, or for trout, 4 sections of the big hole. The upstream-most one is the Jerry Creek, the middle 2 are Mill Roads, and then Hogback. Hogback is between Glen and the Notch. And then our lowest downstream one is at Pennington Bridge. We put in at Pennington Bridge, take out a little above High Road Bridge. The upper three, we have pretty good long-term data sets on. Pennington, we started in 2009, so we don't have as long as the data set on that, but it's becoming a more and more used part of the river and important for recreation. So typically that's been done by, before Caitlin was a fish biologist, so that was all done by the grayling folks. So we don't do any of our trout monitoring up there. It's all handled by now Ryan Kreiner. Yeah, right. Currently that is the case. So we just select a fish in the fall for grayling. In the past, since we switched to the genetic techniques for monitoring grayling, we target just grayling. Prior to that, we did all species. All right, so these are, again, I'm gonna go from upstream to downstream. These first set of graphs are the brown trout population estimates. Every graph follows the same scheme, I guess, if you will, where there's two bars put together. The first bar is the number of fish per mile. The second bar is the number of pounds of fish per mile. So when the two bars are equal, that means the average fish in the river is about 14 inches. When the biomass bar is a lot bigger than this, it means there's very few little fish. When it's flip-flopped, which generally is for most of the sections, where there's a lot more fish than there are pounds, it means we have a lot of smaller fish in the population. So it's just a way to visualize this two things at once sort of a thing. But historically, there are very, very few brown trout in Jerry Creek. In fact, there were no brown trout prior to the dam, the power company dam failing upstream at that point. It was just rainbows. It was known as the trophy rainbow area. But as that dam deteriorated, brown trout moved upstream. And it's only been the last 10 or 15 years where we've collected consistent brown trout data. But all of these graphs show the same sort of trend that we've been concerned about more recently in the last 5 years or so of significant declines in brown trout numbers. 2023 was an average water year. And we had very few drought-related closures, and the trout population responded. And that's what we'll see throughout these graphs is an increase in the number of fish in nearly all of our sections. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So moving downstream to Melrose. Melrose is where we have our longest data set, sent back to the late 60s. And you can see, of course, the significant decline, brown trout in particular, on this section of the river. But the last couple of years, and especially this year, and this is the worst, if you want to call it worst section that we sampled as far as population improvement from last year to this year. But most of what that improvement came in, as you can see, the pounds of fish per mile didn't really change from the 2 years. And so what that means is we saw a lot more little fish. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Moving downstream to hogback. Once again, you can see that most recent data point there for 2024 and a huge increase in the number of small fish that we saw in that section. So these are, I should have backed up and said that this is age 2 brown trout and older. So a 2-year-old brown trout in the big hole, 8 to 12 inches long. It's that size. And so we only estimate fish that size and larger. We catch and see very few fish smaller than that in the river with the gear that we do, with the gear that we use to catch fish. So we're able to estimate it from 8 inches and bigger. So that's what this large increase is from last year to this year, is all in age 2 fish. Typically, because they're age 2 fish, we have a 2-year delay between a decent water year and when we actually see a fish response. But that wasn't the case this year, and people said that last year. A lot of people who fished there said, hey, we're catching a ton of little fish. They didn't show up in our gear last year, but they certainly must have survived very well. We caught a pile of them this year. Go ahead, Janet. Again, the lowest section of the river down at Pennington. These are not consecutive years, as you see below. We did not monitor that for the last couple of years. We weren't able to complete a population estimate down there. But you can see even then it's still a slight increase in the numbers of brown trout in that section. Again, a really good crop of 2-year-old fish. Jerry Creek, lots of them. Melrose were about average for that. And then Everything below that, Pennington and Hogback was above average year class for those 2-year-olds. So this is what that looks like. So this is a length frequency. So these are the numbers of fish for each size class. So 8 to 9 inches, that's how many fish we estimated there were in the population. This is from Hogback. This is from 2023, and this is 2024. So the highest estimate forgot, if we just went to the middle size of an H2 was about 60 fish per mile in 2023. That was over 400 fish a mile this year. So a lot of little fish. And our fish that are larger also increased slightly from the previous year, but like I showed in that other graph or graph before, we had a decent year class, not great, but okay year class compared to the 3 years before that of 2-year-olds. And so those have recruited them to the like 14 to 16 inch range. You can see that with the, last year we were about 175 fish per mile in that 15 inch range, and this year we're over 250 or so. Yeah, exactly. So what will typically happen now is if you get a really good recruitment class like this, the next year this will shift to here. And so there'll be 13 to 16 inch fish next year, and there'll be lots of those. And that can carry us through for many years, because once we get past that next year, then they start to spawn in, their growth starts to slow down, and that group of fish will just kind of fill out the rest of this throughout their lifetime. So one really good year class of fish can carry us through 4 or 5 years of fishing.
I hear you right then, the 2023 big drop in trout populations, you can tie that to the 2021 water year.
Right, exactly. That's how that works. Yeah, it's 2 years with delay generally what we see. Go ahead, go to the next slide. I threw all of these are all 4 sections in one graph, and this is for rainbow trout. Mostly because there wasn't much change in the rainbows. They stayed pretty much the same as they were the previous year. A decent year class of fish in the upper and the lower part of the river. You can see the bars are quite a bit bigger, but it didn't change all that much. We saw quite a few more, particularly in Jerry Creek, where you see the blue bar being a lot bigger than the whatever color it is, maroonish, where we saw quite a few juvenile rainbows, but the rest of the river looked about the same as it did the year before for rainbows.
Why do you see the big response?
I have no idea. I don't know. Typically, yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. Usually when we have high water, it tends to favor the brown trout. We get a few more red scouring, we assume, with rainbows. I don't know if that's really the case. Go ahead and go to the next one. So what does this mean management plan wise? So we have these adaptive management plans on the Big Bull and the Beaverhead and Ruby, where we base our fishing regulations off of what's going on with the fish population. So the more fish we have, we're shooting to manage that population in that green range. That's a good balance of size and numbers of fish. And then we base our fishing regulations off of where we're at population-wise. Of course, last year we were in the red. This is based off of the Melrose section, and it adds up both the browns and the rainbows per mile as our population targets. So when we're in the red population estimates that we have through time, then that's where we're at right now. That's where we've been at the last 4 years, but we are improving. And so those regulations we only adjust regulations unless we go into one of the red categories every 2 years. And this is the off year of those 2 years. So even if we would have went into the green, the regulations would stay the same. Next year at this time will be when we would, if we're in a different level of this management plan where we would propose a change for the fishing. So next year, if we improve again, or if we improve into green, you can see the lower section measured at the hogback, we're just barely outside of the green in there for that section. So if we're in the green next year, then we will be proposing to lift that fall spawn enclosure and allow fishing year round again. Any questions on this part of it, or how that management plan works? So we base the management plans off of Melrose section and the Hogback section, and then we use the Jerry Creek and the Pennington sections to corroborate, to make sure that there isn't some sort of anomaly in the data. And so we don't use those sections directly for the management plan. We just use it to say, wow, you know, if there's something weird that we'll get onto that estimate, does that match up with what's next to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The contact is in the green and Melrose is still below, how would that look?
So then that lower section of the river would both be open to year round. So from the Brown Bridge down to the mouth would be open to year round. Correct, it stays in that same category. And even if it moves to the yellow, it stays the same, except for you could keep one fish. That's the difference. So now I want to transition a little bit and talk about the research projects that we have going on the river right now, where those are at, and also how anybody who's fishing can participate in those. We have 3 research, actually there's 4. There's a recreation one too, but I'll focus on the 3 fisheries ones. Research projects that are going through MSU, 2 PhD students. The first is an adult mortality study, so trying to figure out the factors that are most important in the mortality rate of fish that are older than age 2. So what's affecting those fish? Why are they dying? And what rates are they dying? And how hopefully we can get some good information from that then to guide our management going forward. The first step in that is this fish tagging study, which is going to help us assess mortality and angler related mortality in particular. And so we have these tags in these fish. This is an example of one of those tags right there. We tagged about 2,500 fish this year in the big hole. Each one of our sections has these tagged fish in it. Each fish also has 2 tags in it. It has that one you can see externally, and it also has an internal tag like the one you give to your dog, a little chip that goes underneath the skin. So we have to put a rear over the top of it, and it just gives us the number from it. The idea behind this is to, through angler returns and through then subsequent electrofishing returns, to determine mortality rates on this fish. And then once we have those mortality rates, we can hopefully link them back to the specific cause of that mortality. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So there's 2 types of tags that are out there, and we're asking everybody, if you catch a tagged fish, to clip that tag off. Please don't pull it out. It's meant to be clipped. It has a T on it. On the back of the fish, you can see that tag going in right there. It goes in between the rays, which are bones that go down into that fish's back. It goes through those to the other side. If you pull that tag out, you're ripping it through the bones and all the flesh to pull it out. Just leave it in, clip it with your fingernail clippers. If you don't have clippers, then just take a picture of it and let it go. You're better off doing that than to rip the tag out. There are 2 types of tags, and I'll explain why that is. There's a blue tag, which most of the fish are, and then there's 50 of these yellow tags that are in the river. The yellow tag ones, the yellow tags are worth $100 a piece. So if you catch one, each tag has a phone number on it you can call, or every fishing access has this sign at it now, has a QR code. In my truck, I have those QR codes if you want one for your wallet. You can stick in there and just put it in your phone, and it takes you right to the website where you report these tags, which MSU is hosting that website. The reason we're asking you to clip the tags, and the reason why there's 2 different colors of tags, is we need to understand what the what's called the non-reporting rate is. So how many fish got caught, that fish was tagged, and we never heard about it. We assume that everybody who catches a $100 tag is going to turn in a $100 tag, right? It's $100. And so we have 50 of those tags out in the river right now. If we get 25 of them back, we assume that 25 of those 50 fish got caught last year. And so we apply that same percentage. Well, then we would expect, if everybody reported every blue tag, we would expect this many tags, but this is how many of those we got. So we're able to determine what our non-reporting rate is, so we can actually determine what the actual catch rate is of those fish during the year. That's why there's two different types of tags out there. And that's why we're asking everybody to clip them this year. Anybody caught a yellow one yet?
No, but I think fish caught each time.
Okay, you gotta take the whole tag, take the whole tag, you know. We need the number on the tag, if you just take the in half, that's not gonna do us anything. And there you go, so cool, yeah, so they're out there, and, there's 49 out there now instead of, and we've caught them too in electrofishing, so in our electrofishing runs, you know, it takes us 4 times through to get our full population estimate. On our 4th time through, we were catching fish that had the tags flipped off. So it's kind of cool. All right, go ahead and go to the next one. So I think I went through most of this stuff. The other thing too is, I don't know, have you run into creel clerk yet on the river? Somebody come up and talk to you? Not yet. Not yet. Okay, so we have a creel clerk on the river, and what that is the person who will come and interview once as you're fishing, or once you're hopefully done with your day fishing is the main point of it, if we can do that. And then they'll ask you specific questions. And this also gets at that catch rate thing for us. And so we're trying to figure out how many fish you caught, but then also understanding, I know this is important to a lot of people around here, what kind of gear you're using. Are you using barb hooks? Are you using barbless hooks? Are you those sorts of things, so we can correlate those back then to the mortality rate of these fish, understanding how many people fish with certain types of gear. But then we can apply those rates to figure out what mortality is, and if that's an important thing affecting the overall mortality of fish. So be nice to her. Her name is Hannah, and she's nice. She's a good person. And so I know sometimes when you're getting off at the end of the day, it's the last thing you want to do is answer a few questions, but just take a few minutes and do so. She's pretty quick with that, and yeah, that's an important part of this overall study. I've talked about too the juvenile fish study that's going on in the natal origins of the fish. And so that's done through otolith microchemistry, where we can tell where that fish was born. We don't have a good idea where the production in the river really comes from, if it's coming from the river itself or tributaries, or if there's a certain section of the river where we get a lot more fish from, where we can emphasize potential habitat restoration projects. And then the last part of this, of course, is fish health stuff. This year we did, in every one of our population estimate sections, looked very closely at every fish we caught. In fact, we took a picture of every single fish that we caught this year, looking for signs of disease. About 1 in 20 fish had any sort of sign of any sort of disease. And that could have been a little teeny bump on the tail, anything like that. We saw probably, I think it was 2 or 3 fish that had the head lesion, the kind of thing you see down here, nothing that severe that looked like that. But we have a ton of really good people helping us to figure out what this is. This is not fungus. Whatever this stuff is that we're seeing on their head, it's not fungus. That's all I know so far, is it's not fungus. That is definitely fungus, yeah. Just so you know, like, this is not unnormal, like abnormal to have, especially in the fall, to have fish with fungus. Like, this is, the rainbows get it this time of year when they're spawning. It's a natural thing that happens. It's not something alien that comes in, you know, some new disease. That's a natural thing that happens. And as the fish gets weaker and that sort of thing, they will be infected by fungus. The stuff on the head is something we don't fully understand. But we have a really good group of people right now who are really helping us to better understand the disease issue. And that's the third leg of this research project, is this disease study. So we collected additional samples last fall, samples this spring, looking for disease stuff, looking at a whole bunch of new techniques and new people who know a lot more about this stuff than what we do here locally in the state. So, you have a question? So no, we don't have a histologist ourselves. The Fish and Wildlife Service does in both instances. But we have 3 histologists across the country who are all looking at the same samples now, and to confirm that they're finding the same sorts of things. So, and I don't know if we actually should have Anthony here to answer these questions, but I don't know if we do yet. here locally. I don't think we do. I think we're still sending those samples out, but I could be wrong. Yeah, that's the fish tech center through the Fish and Wildlife Service. We still are looking for sick fish too. So as you're fishing, if you can report these sick fish, if you see one, there's a website here. But if you have your phones out, Anthony Zenga, we hired him this spring. He was out on all of our electrofishing, so he's familiar with the river now. He knows everything that's going on as far as like what we're doing. And he's the guy. He is available whenever, if somebody catches a fish that's sick and you call him, that's his job this whole summer, is to come out and find that fish. And so, go ahead and go to the next slide. That's him, okay? And he'll tell you where that fish was caught if you call him. 28 inches and almost 9 pounds. So, and in that one day, we caught that fish and we caught 2 other fish that were over 6 in that same section. So, but that's Anthony. That's his job, is to help us coordinate this disease stuff. He took all of the samples this spring, did all the fish health forms and stuff on them, just on all the fish that we got this spring that had any sort of sign of disease. No, because you can't. No, because legally it's catch and release. So if you catch a fish like that, right.
I'm gonna.
Right, so that's gonna be the tough part, especially on the big hole, because there's no cell coverage to go to that reach. Yeah, it's not an easy thing, but what we're hoping is, like, if you catch a fish like this, I don't think very many people catch fish that look sick, because they don't eat anything. It's more like we just floated by, there's a fish sitting in that wheat, in that grass or whatever in the side that is just, it's not dead yet, but it's lethargic. You take a GPS and you call Anthony, he'll go get it. That's what our hope is. Like, if somebody can catch one, I don't think it's, you just don't catch it. Yeah. Yes.
See, in Alaska,
Right, yeah, and it's just really, it's really hard for us to get our hands on these specimens. But that's, yeah. It has to be still breathing. We were able to get a few last fall. Like I caught one with my hands at Melrose when I was doing the dead fish count. It was just sitting in the rocks on the side. I did the red count when I came back and it was still sitting right there, the same place it was. And so I went back to my truck, got a net, dipping it out, scooped it up. So if we get a good location and he's available to come, there's a chance.
And then from there, it's in water, like you try to keep it alive as long as possible.
No, he has all of the stuff and he crops it right there. So he'll bonk it right there and he'll start cutting it right away to preserve all the samples and stuff. Yep. Yeah, he's all trained up in that.
There's a specific bunker.
I haven't seen him do it yet. It's probably, yeah. I can skip the rest too if we want to go. Like, that's all I have on the river. If you guys want to talk, if you have any questions and stuff on the river, and like where we're going with, we have 2 PhD students on that are doing this research. You know, we're just barely hitting the ground now. We did all this stuff in the spring to get these tags out and get the research started, but they're just hitting the ground right now. So yeah, you can see that. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, go ahead and go to the next one. You know, our research, the research that's getting done, what we want out of it is a direction for management. What can we do about what we're seeing? So what are the most important things to juvenile mortality? What are the most important things to adult mortality? And what is we as managers of the resource can do? What can we do about those things? That's what we're really hoping to get out of this. In the meantime, though, we're not doing nothing about what's going on because we know certain things are super important. We know water is the most important driver of the whole system. And what we've seen in the last few years too, in those low water years, is a lack of recruitment. So any project that can increase recruitment of juvenile fish into the system are important for us to keep going forward. So go ahead and go to the next one. So one of these I won't have to talk about because Ben already did. So working on projects to get more water in the river, ideas, thinking out of the box on how we can come up with ways to keep more water in the river. And then also improving the quality of that water that's going into the river, having that water be cold, to help keep the river cold. And like I said, pretty spots. Go to the last one. So go ahead and go to the next one. I'll just talk about these projects really quick. This is the Spring Creek that Ben was talking about. So this is Wise River right here coming in. Here's the town of Wise River. This is Pete's house, Pete Campbell, and this is the creek. So the creek is fed from two sources. Basically, this pond, a ton of groundwater springs come into that pond. It's about 5 CFS or so come into that pond and form the creek. That's the base flow. But then water is also diverted from the Wise River that feeds the irrigation system that floods all this and then floods this. And part of that water also goes down to Spring Creek in the summertime. So base flow is about 5, it peaks about 20 or so. And this is from data that Pedro and Ben collected in that stream a couple of years ago. So go ahead and go to the next one. I'll go through this really fast because Ben already talked about it. So Ben said, like he said, the stream is in a lot of places over widened. And so it's too wide, therefore it doesn't have the capacity or the power to move those silts through. And so a lot of the gravels become silted. Where it's narrow enough, we see reds in there like that. So go ahead to the next one. But in a lot of the slower water areas, this is what you see, a lot of silt run through there. So go ahead. And this is where it's narrow, you know, it's about 10 feet across right here, it's narrow, it's got good velocity, and that's where the fish use it. Go ahead. You have problems with beavers in this system, where they're blocking passage into it, and then also damming it up. It's really flat, so like one small beaver dam like that, that's only, I don't know, 2.5, 3 feet tall, back up more than 100 yards of that system. It's so flat. Yeah, exactly, yep.
So you got some indicator.
Yeah, well, and I'll show you in a red count thing in a second too. So there's about 3,500 feet of channel there total from that lower pond to where it hits the big hole. About 180 feet of it now are suitable for spawning. So the goal of the project is to create about 1,600 feet of spawning habitat in that reach. So about half of what's there will be modified from its current condition to create spawning habitat. And Ben showed how that was going to happen, so I'm not going to go into that much. And then also we're going to enhance some of the juvenile habitat in those pools by adding some willows that project out over and even into the water to provide complex habitat for those fish to hide in as they grow. They'll stay in that Spring Creek system from, some of them will stay less than a year and up to a year. And you see those fish in there now. There's lots of little trout in there that are about 6 inches long. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is the same exact slide Ben showed. So just narrowing it. So go ahead and go to the next one. So in 2022 is the first time we've done a red count in there. There were only 2 reds in that system. They were both right at the mouth of the stream because there was a series of about 4 beaver dams in that system that blocked all access to it. So there were no other reds throughout the whole creek. Last fall, we did a red count. All but that one beaver dam you can see in that photo was removed. I'm not sure that one's a complete, no, it wasn't a complete passage barrier that they're able to jump that dam. And then there were 28 reds in there. It has the capacity to hold a ton more than that. It's the best Spring Creek in all of the Big Hole as far as quantity of water goes. And the other cool thing is our long-term monitoring site is just downstream of that. So if this project results in what we hope it does in pumping out a bunch more little fish into the river, we should see them in our monitoring site. The next project we're working on, this same area that Ben showed for riparian plantings. This is Johnson and Alder Creek reconnect. So here again is Wise River. This is just upstream of Wise River on the old mountain place. And so what's going on here is there's water diverted from the Big Hole River. You can see it coming down this ditch, and it crosses where Johnson Creek comes out of the Fleecer Mountain. Same exact thing happens here for Alder Creek coming out of the West Pioneers. The ditch coming off the Big Hole intersects those two, or intersects the stream right there at those points. And so if you go to the next slide. So here's what's going on. So this is the ditch from the big hole that comes through here like this. This is Johnson Creek that goes down. That's the Big Hole River there. So when irrigation's in place, all of that cold water that's coming out of Fleecer, off of Fleecer down Johnson Creek, when these boards are in place, comes down and goes down the ditch and feeds the irrigation system. So what we're proposing to do here is to change the water rights from Johnson Creek to the Big Hole River to allow them to divert more warm water out of the Big Hole. And then when we get to this point, likely in Johnson Creek, there's a lot of elevation drop between here and the river to actually flow that water across over the top, so that Big Hole water across the top, and then allow Johnson Creek just to flow underneath it in a natural stream channel down to the Big Hole River. So all that cold water that comes out of the mountains goes directly into the Big Hole River. So then we have year-round fish passage, cold water delivery right to the river. But then all the irrigation needs can be satisfied by diverting the warmer water from the Big Hole. Go to the next one. This is the same exact system. So this is Alder Creek coming out of here where I'm standing. Here's the ditch from the Big Hole. It crosses and goes down and feeds the irrigation system. That's the Big Hole River there. So same process where we would allow that cold water from Alder Creek to make it all the way to the river, satisfy the irrigation needs by diverting more water from the main center. This is a project that we're hopefully going to get funded for. Well, I don't know. When I say we, this is me and Ben and Pedro working on stuff. We got, after we got money for design, and then we're getting these designs in place, and then the watershed committee is taking those designs and putting them into doing the contracting and fundraising for the implementations.
More proposals.
They're done. Well, no, the one's done. The temperature's done. These ones, we don't have the design yet in place. So there's some goofy, stupid stuff with water rights. So it's actually really weird. And I'm not going to explain it because it'll take too long unless you want to know, because it affects our in-stream flow, even though we're the ones proposing the project. So for that 200 yards between the diversion point off the Big Hole to where Johnson Creek comes in, we are affecting FWB's in-stream flow right, even though we're the ones proposing the project. Makes no sense. So, but we're figuring it out.
You don't have to object.
I know, that's just it. The DNRC so far won't, but we can't get it. We're waiting for the DNRC to give us an administrative opinion that this is okay to do. That we don't need to object to affecting our own water rights. And I won't go into this, but we're working with the watershed committee on a drought plan for the Wise River to see if we can maximize the effect of the cooling effect of the Wise River and all the groundwater that comes in through the flood irrigation that happens in that valley, but then also maintain connectivity of the Wise River with the Big Hole during the drought times. When it gets really bad, there's 2 CFS or so of surface flow in the Wise River that makes it to the Big Hole, and see if we can work on some projects and cooperation with the water users there to keep enough flow in that to maintain fish passage, so that fish in the Big Hole where it's really warm can find that cool Wise River and use the habitat that's in there. Yeah, I think it's 20 CFS. Yeah, at the mountain. There's usually 50 available, even in a bad year. All right, go ahead. I just go ahead and switch to the next one. I just wanted to give a quick update on French Creek. See, for those of you who've been to the dam or want to go to or barrier, I guess, whatever, that's what it looks like. Go ahead and go to the next one. You guys are very familiar with this project. So we treated that system in 2021, 2022. There's 40 miles of habitat upstream of that fish barrier that had fish in it previously. Go to the next one. We used eDNA to verify after those treatments that we had removed all of the fish upstream of that barrier. And that's collecting a water sample from the creek onto a filter that filters out any DNA that's in the water. Then we can detect if there's a fish. We collect each of those samples every 250 meters going up the stream. And in all of that area, all of that 40 miles, in 2022, when we did this first round of eDNA, we found 1 fish in Moose Creek. Right there. See, there's a 2, a 1, a 2, a 3, and there's 2 3s in there. So we found that one fish in 4 different samples a day. We went in and retreated that, and we found that one fish. Wait, the next one. So in 2022, we verified that all the tributaries were clear. We had a couple of suspect hits in the lower watershed, so we didn't restock the lower part of the watershed for you guys who want to go fishing. It didn't get stocked down there by the main stem in 2022. But then we resampled those areas in 2023, found that there were no brook trout in there, NA and electrofishing both. So the whole system was stocked in 2023. We did both H0 and H1 grayling. So an H1 grayling is like 7 to 10 inches long. They grow really, really fast. And then in 2023, we also stocked H1 cutthroat. So in that lower part of the main stem creek, there were fish that went in that were 8 inches long. And then a whole bunch of little. So these would be H0 cutthroat, they're about 2 inches long. These are H0 grayling, and these are H1 grayling. We also found an H1 grayling spawn this spring. So we found little tiny fish before we stopped any fish. So some of those H1 fish were sexually mature and spawned on their own. Well, I think that's it. Yeah. If anybody wants to come out and stock fish, we usually do it end of August, and we need lots of people to help us spread out fish. So a lot of the folks from Anacom Sportsman came and helped us to stock fish out, and we'll do that again this year and probably again next year as well. And the fish should be doing it on their own after that. So, yeah. That's all I got. I think there's one more picture, but kids are welcome too. As long as they can carry a 5-gallon bucket. That's all I got.
What do you suspect, is there a way that you'll know if French Creek stocked fish have made it to the big hole? Is there there's no way that we'll ever know that?
No, not really, other than, because the grayling are from axolotl, which is from the big hole, so you can't distinguish those two very readily. There is a little bit of a genetic difference between the two, but not very apparent. But if you start catching a lot of west slope around East Bank, I'm guessing they came out of here because there's no other west slopes around there. I don't know, I've only got rainbows up there. I've never caught a west slope in that section of the river. Have you got a cutthroat up there? Yeah, we see them Jerry Creek and we see cutthroat all the way down to Pennington though. I think we caught 6 cutthroat in Pennington this year. I don't know where those come from. There's no tributaries. I don't know where they come from, but fish move. So they must have moved from somewhere else because they're not coming from any tributary down there.
Over time, you should see an increase in fish if they're spawning in French Creek. More fish, correct?
Well, we had fish fish would move up from the big hole before into French Creek too, so before the fish barrier was there. Certainly rainbows especially.
Barrier, right?
Oh yeah, and they certainly will. But before that happened, before there was a barrier, that was happening too. Fish were running up the stream, spawning in French Creek, and those juvenile fish were moving out. Back to the big hole. That's right. That's the main difference, is that there'll be more of these fish there, but as far as like enhancing the fishery of the Big Hole River with more fish, it shouldn't be any different than it was before. They'll just be different fish. So potentially more grayling and for sure more cutthroat.
So your fish counts maybe see more grayling.
Right, but the overall count shouldn't, I don't think, unless there's some reason, I don't know, it shouldn't, but yeah, Steve is there with her.
Let us know when you do fish counts.
Yeah, it'll be usually end of August, so that's when I'll make sure. Before 11 o'clock, did it?
Thank you, Jim. Thanks everybody for making it, for staying late. Our next meeting is the Bureau of Mines giving us an update on their water study that they've been doing down in the Glen area. So Jenna Dolman will be here presenting on that data they've been collecting for the last 2 years. On irrigation returns and sort of a whole water balance study down in Glen. So look forward to seeing you then. Yes, we're set at 7. We're still at 7. On the 3rd Wednesday of June, 19th, yeah, 7 o'clock, we're still here. And that'll do it. If y'all could quickly flip some tables and get some chairs out for us, we appreciate it. Thanks very much. Thanks to everyone on Zoom. All right.